Look at that backdrop.
You got to let people know wwhere you're from, right?
I can see. I can see it all.
Welcome, everyone, to the Next Best Picture podcast. We are talking with Saoirse Ronan from the Outrun. Saoirse, thank you so much for joining us today.
For having me.
This story, as we see it in the film, is fragmented in time with different pieces of Rona's life coming in at different times, going back and forth between different periods. Was the filming of it similarly jumping around in time?
Not as much. No,
Hmm.
we keep it as chronological as we could. So we shot the London section first, which was I think a week in real London, and then we did about a week in Edinburgh for all the interior stuff. So all of that sort of chaos of her just sort of spiraling and falling in love and finding her friends and finding her place in the city and then losing it all over the coming years. We did all of that like very, very quickly, and it was incredibly intense, I think, for everyone, for like our hair and makeup designer, Kat. She was constantly having to do like quick changes. We'd probably do like 6 changes a day sometimes. She was put
Gosh.
I think there was one day where she had to put the prosthetic eye on my face and then take it off.
Mm.
Then she had to put it back on again, which is like unheard of to do,
Wow.
which is incredible. So then we went into the Orcadian section, which was more kind of mellow and flat in terms of the energy that I was sort of giving out. And then Pape was this moment of like release and, uh, you know, uh, rebirth. And it
Mm.
actually, it worked out very well how we shot it. Yeah.
Good. And how did you, as a performer, tether yourself to where you were in Rona's journey, bouncing back and forth like this?
I mean, whenever there were moments where I wasn't quite sure emotionally of how to pitch it, I was obviously speaking to Nora, our director, quite a bit. The great thing though about playing someone who is an addict, whether they're under the influence or they're in recovery, is that there is this sort of unpredictable nature to their mood. So even within scenes, I could pitch it in different ways because we knew that like
Mm.
the editing process was going to be where we would really determine what this movie was going to be. We shot so much, like there's so much footage that no one will ever see. So we kind of played around with it quite a bit in terms of the energy that was sort of being given off and how aware I was of what I was going through, how numb I needed to be, and we were always sort of playing around with that.
Mm.
So yeah, my muscles were really being worked on the job.
I can imagine. And I read that the dialogue for this was largely improvised, that the script was kind of mostly prompts and directions for the performers more so than fixed lines. And I know that back in my younger days when I would perform as an actor, I always felt a little awkward with improvisation, like I was somehow like both performing and watching myself performing at the same time, like I'm not fully in character. Like, how comfortable did you feel with that level of authorship over the final product that's so
Well,
different?
I was very aware of what that feeling is like because, as I'm sure you have done as well, we've seen so many people do improv, especially in movies. And I'm like, there's no structure, it's messy, people are just repeating the same thing again and again. And of course they are, because it's hard, you know. It's a hard thing to do. But when Nora had said that this was the route that she wanted to go down, I was quite cynical about the whole thing because just from a sort of a taste perspective, whenever I watch movies like that, the majority of the time I'm like, it doesn't work. And the
Mm.
performance isn't as accurate and as sharp as it could be. And I didn't want to give, pardon my French, but this kind of half-arsed performance that was a bit washy. I wanted it to have an accuracy to it and a precision to it, in its messiness and its chaos. And so I communicated this to her, And so it meant that we had this sort of loose structure of the script, but then we would go in and, at least for me, I would work on the dialogue with Nora. So we had a
Mm.
sense of how it would come out of my mouth potentially on the day. So that kind of gave me this safety blanket before we actually started, to know that at least there was some sort of semblance of a plan. And actually, I would say within like 1 or 2 days, once I got into it, improv started to come so quick and fast, and your brain sort of starts to adjust to it, and it gave me this amazing sort of creative freedom. And as you say, I kind of became this author who was like editing a performance as I went along, but really felt like I was in it. And I think because there is such a chaos to someone when they're in that state of mind, I was able to really go for something and make it really big and then completely pull back, and um it didn't feel unrealistic or inauthentic to do that, you know. So yeah, so it ended up being a great experience, but I had felt exactly the same way at the beginning.
That's really wonderful to hear. And on top of all this, that this is also your first producing credit, which congratulations. Um, and I had read you say that you found it really healthy while acting to have this extra responsibility as a producer, that it stopped you from completely losing yourself as an actor. And I'm curious if you could talk about any specific moment while filming where you felt particularly glad to be able to put your producer hat on at the end of the day.
I mean, to be honest, it was in prep when we were scheduling that
Mm.
the producer actor hat simultaneously became incredibly helpful, because, you know, I was in pretty much like every single shot of the movie. And so to be able to go through our schedule with our first AD, our director, and the other producers, and actually walk through how much time I knew I would need, how much time we would need to be in the chair in the morning, to be in the hair and makeup chair in the morning, how much of a turnaround I would need, whether I we could pair things that, you know, were on the same location, and emotionally if that could work for me. Like, I was able to sort of expedite that whole process. So it was really, really helpful, I think, for everyone to have me in the room, and also for me, because I like knowing what's going to happen and sort of what the shape of the shooting schedule is going to be. And so often, infuriatingly, shooting schedules are kept from actors till like the last minute. I still don't know why. So it was really nice to know like what the shape of it was going to be, and sort of how I could um just how to sort of reserve my energy when I needed to, you know. So that was really helpful. I think it was just also really great to, I don't ever really like lose myself as an actor. I'm definitely one of those actors that like I can switch off at the end of the day, and even like in between setups or takes. But actually, because of that, being a producer on it as well and having this added responsibility meant that I was much sharper as a worker. I think I was more alert. I felt like the onus was on me an awful lot more, and I was having like much more kind of productive conversations with members of the crew who I had a good rapport with anyway, because I was an actor, because I wasn't just a producer who was sort of in the background. I was someone who was shooting with them every day, but I was also able to be like, you know, checking in with them and seeing if there was anything that they needed. And I could kind of be that middleman to go back then to our other producers. So it's absolutely something that I would recommend for any creative to do. I think that being a creative and being a producer is a very different thing, but
Mhm.
like, have both in your team only makes the experience richer.
That's really beautiful to hear. And I know we're coming up to the end of our time together, but I have to ask before I go, will you be doing another polar plunge anytime soon?
I absolutely will.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in a very cold place over the holidays, and I will be in the sea every single day, which I always do. It's my favorite thing to do. So yes.
Ah, mine too. That's so wonderful to hear. Yeah. I grew up on the ocean. I absolutely adore it. It's my second home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same.
Well, Saoirse, it's been so wonderful talking to you today, and thank you so much for talking with us, and thank you so much for your work on this film.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you.